Zooming across the finish line is Aetherdrift's Eternal Might Precon, an Esper, black, blue, and white zombie-themed deck packed with new cards and exciting new commanders, such as the Precon's box legend Temmet Naktamun's Will. Temmet is a returning character with a new look and some new tricks. This 5-mana 4/4 zombie wizard reads Vigilance, Menace. Whenever you attack, draw a card, then discard a card. Whenever you draw a card, zombies you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Pretty simple and, well, pretty simple. That seems to be the issue that a few folks have with Temmet here. What does he do differently than Verena except maybe pump your zombies a little bit more efficiently? I'm not a fan personally. Temmet is a one-note commander that really only makes sense in a zombie deck unless you ignore some of the text on him altogether. This guy is nothing new, but everyone is super hyped for the inbox legend Hashaton Scarab's Fist. This 2-mana zombie wizard is a 1/3, the best creature size, and reads, whenever you discard a creature card you may pay 2 and a blue. If you do, create a tapped token that's a copy of that card, except it's a 4/4 black zombie. In case you missed it, yes, Hashaton is 3 colors thanks to that triggered ability cost, making him an Esper commander but costing only 2 mana. Rightly so, people are excited about Hashaton for everything from low power to high power brews. CEDH folks are excited about him too, and that's because you get to cast creatures at instant speed, but without casting them. On the low power scale, it means that you can get an instant speed Massacre Worm for 3 mana. On the high power scale, this means that you can make an instant speed Thassa's Oracle with no way to interact with it. That's where this starts to get off the rails, and that's why I'm so excited about this guy too. He does something different. So before we take a look at brewing around Hashaton, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments what you think about this precon. I want to turn this deck into a reanimator deck with Hashaton at the helm, which means we'll be making some extensive cuts and adds to the list. Out of the box, this deck wants to be a zombie deck with lords like Cemetery Reaper, Lord of the Accursed, and Zombie Master all in the box. But we don't need them with the upgrade. Hashaton making zombies is incidental to what we're doing, not core to it. Our regular creatures won't be zombies by default, so these lords all lose their luster. I'm going to cut Binding Mummy, Undead Augur, and Gempalm Polluter because we're not about going wide with zombies here. We're about making big, threatening monsters on the cheap, at instant speed, and exploiting the fact that then they're also in our graveyard still. Forgotten Creation, Twisted Abomination, and Fleshbag Marauder all get cut too. We don't need our creatures to be zombies, we just need them to be of value. Timeless Dragon is a card in the base deck that's along the same lines of what we want. A card that discards itself and is useful, but it doesn't have an Enters ability and you have to pay 2 to discard it to itself. This means, with Hashaton, you're still paying 5 mana for a 4/4 flyer that goes and fetches you a plains. We can do much better than that. Out goes Plague Belcher 2, along with Midnight Reaper. Both these hinge on our creatures dying, and we're going tall rather than wide, so we don't want to bank on losing our stuff. Spells like Never to Return and Dusk to Dawn and Commence the Endgame can all go too. We're not able to make use of these in the main deck, let alone our revised list. And as much as I love Maskwood Nexus, we don't care about a single creature type. Even in the base list, this makes little sense with so many cards naturally being zombies. This doesn't mean we're not keeping a good bunch of the main list. Rothulk, still a zombie, is actually a great keep in this deck if he only snags you 2 to 3 bodies from the yard. Prophet of the Scarab is great too, since we could potentially get a 4/4 Vigilance creature for 3 mana that also draws us at least 1 card from itself being in the yard. That's a good return. Red 2 Mystic is also a fantastic creature in either version of this brew, giving us a way to cycle our creatures and trigger Hashaton whenever we want, though this is a more mana intensive way to enable our strategy. We also keep new hits like On Wings of Gold too, since it gives the tokens we make with Hashaton +1/+1 and flying while making us tokens along the way. That's a good synergy overlap. And Renewed Solidarity, another new card to the list, is a way to pump creatures of a certain type, but also makes copies of the tokens that you make with that type. Ignoring the general power pump, this is a great way to double up on strong effects from tokens we make with our commander. And this is where I want to start adding back in cards. Hashaton triggers when we discard, and we have seriously few discard outlets in the deck naturally. So putting in Putrid Imp, The Underworld Cookbook and Tireless Tribe are my first adds. This means we can drop either of the 1-cost cards on turn 1, Hashaton on turn 2, and by turn 3 we could be making a 4/4 Grave Titan that brings friends to the party. That's a good start. Spells that let us discard cards are great too. Frantic Search, Bitter Triumph, and Careful Study all help us along the way with useful abilities but are so low costed we can definitely activate Hashaton in addition to make some surprise big beefy boys almost entirely at instant speed. But looters really help here too. Likeness Looter, Rona Herald of Invasion, and Vohar Vodalian Desecrator are all creatures that have the ability to tap to draw us a card and discard a card. That's an amazing way to enable Hashaton's trigger and keep our hands full. All big wins. Ghostly Pilferer is an ideal discard outlet too, as it's free to discard a card and we can do it as often as we want. It'll also deal some damage by being unblockable and draw us some cards as opponents cast their commanders. The best discard outlet might be Scourge Familiar, because not only do you not have to pay for the discard ability, but it makes you a mana for the discard ability to pay for Hashaton's trigger. This means, with the Familiar out, you're only paying 2 mana for big creatures. Rafine Scheming Seer is the other discard outlet I'd like to see in the deck. Since Connive makes you draw and discard cards, Rafine does it better than anyone else while also buffing your creatures and getting you juicy effects. But what are the targets I'm putting in the list? What are we making 4/4 zombie copies of at instant speed? Let's start with amazing Enters effects, like on Massacre Worm, Sun Titan, or Angel of the Ruins. Getting a 4/4 copy of these can end a game fast by wiping away early creatures, reanimating previous discards, or nuking artifacts and enchantments. For the same reason I want Ashen Rider in the list too. Getting to exile a permanent on Enters and Exit is great, especially when you're paying just 3 mana for this effect. And Hoarding Broodlord is fantastic too, as it tutors a card on Enters. Then, it can allow you to tap your creatures to cast that same spell by giving it Convoke. Then, there are a few targets with activated or triggered abilities I want in the deck. All-Seeing Arbiter and Dream Trawler make big threats that draw cards and let us discard cards, while Hullbreaker Horror can get us more and more value as we cast more and more spells. All great wins, all great threats to get out early. I want to round out my additions with one of my favorite enchantments, Oversold Cemetery. Since we're pitching creatures to our yard, this is a fantastic way to get them back over and over, and potentially every turn cycle make another Massacre Worm or other crazy threat. Then I'll clean up the lands here too, removing some of the tapped lands that don't really benefit us, like the Cycling Deserts. Why are they even in the list except for theme? Replace them with basics. Your deck works best when you can cast spells on curve, and this deck potentially wants you to pay a bit more mana to make multiple nasty monsters, so it's worth it to ensure that you can, actually pay for it. But if I were to add some more money to the brew, how would I do that? Let's look at the upgrade. There's still some room to cut cards like the Lost Monarch of Ifnir, Priest of the Crossing, or Cryptbreaker if you're just not feeling them. Here's where I'd add in some even better discard enabling effects. Psychic Frog, Ledger Shredder, and the recently exploded in price tortured Existence are all excellent adds to the deck, as they let you discard and draw cards regularly, with the Existence letting you turn any creature draw into the best creature in your graveyard over and over again. Then we could turn the deck into a real Reanimator deck with Reanimate, Persist, and Animate Dead, along with other added effects. Imagine discarding a creature, making a 4/4 copy with Hashaton, then paying just a single mana or 2 to get the original back from the graveyard. That's what this deck ideally wants to be doing, along with making things like a 4/4 Esper Sentinel. Can you imagine how great that would be? It's not necessary, but it's a very good play that can draw you a lot of cards. It's a value play. Also not necessary but very good are token doublers like Anointed Procession, Mondrak, and O'Hare Talk. Hashaton is making zombie tokens of our big things, so let's make like 10 copies of them. It's a bit win more, but it's never a waste in the deck. It is a lot of money though. I would really love to see how you've upgraded this precon and what you're doing with Hashaton or Temmet. Share your lists in the comments with your must-have cards. Be sure to check out my upgraded list linked below and my sponsor, MOXFIELD. MOXFIELD is the best deck building platform in the world and makes it easy to see all my brews all year long, all the time. With powerful search tools, you can find the best cards for your deck, and it's easy to brew to your power preference. Be sure to follow my profile while you're there. And if you're looking to pick up any cards, cheap or expensive, head over to my sponsor, Card Trader. Use my promo code right now for 5% off your first order of cards from any TCG. Their Zero system lets you order cards from multiple vendors and have them shipped to you all at once, saving you time and money on shipping. Lastly, if you're looking to sell your cards, head to Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your cards from Magic, Pokemon, or any other game. You can ship them unsorted to Card Conduit and they'll send you a check. Easy as that. It's the quickest way to sell extra copies or just old stuff you have sitting around. Try them out now. And if you want to see any of my cool brews, check out these other videos on the channel. If you're a fan and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, do it now. But as always folks, good luck and have fun.